Hello everybody. I thought today that I would make a video on why I quit drinking coffee and some of my thoughts on drinking coffee. To start with, I guess I'm going to start just talking about when I quit drinking coffee. I went through a lot of withdrawals quitting drinking coffee. And I know that it's a really hard thing to do, but when I first got into a raw vegan lifestyle, I was struggling with a few different things, and this is going back about 5 years ago. And I didn't just quit instantly, but a few months into it, I decided to just go ahead and give up all addictions and just get rid of the coffee altogether. And I wasn't feeling real well when I was going through the detoxes anyway. I went through a lot of feeling really like sick, and some days even just laying in bed, and really bad headaches. I had like sinus-like headaches, and I suffered from sinuses before I went on a raw vegan lifestyle anyway. And I was having them a lot more frequently though when I was going through detoxing, and especially getting off of coffee. It was like the worst sinus week that I ever had, but it wasn't just a week, it was months. And just head congestion and congestion in my nose, and it was just really a long journey, and it wasn't easy. Especially because I guess when I was doing it while I was getting off of cooked foods, and while I was doing other detoxes in my body and stuff, my body was just flooding out with all of these things. And I also was getting rid of all the plastic and going on distilled water and things like that. And it was just probably a lot at one time. So that was the way that I did it. But there was a little, this is another part of the story, was as I went a year into raw veganism and I wasn't drinking coffee anymore, I had been at a health food store that I go to, and there's a lady in there that I know. And my husband was still drinking coffee, and he was drinking something called bio coffee. And she was saying, well, this coffee is not acidic. It's alkaline, and it has absolutely no caffeine in it. And I said, how in the world would it not have any caffeine in it? I thought, no, I don't really want, that's like chemicals. I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. But I was still going through a lot of detoxing, and I was not feeling the greatest, and I thought maybe I should just try this and see what happens. Well, I was getting really jittery, and I thought, well, why am I getting jittery if this doesn't have any caffeine in it? So I started to look it up, and I kept finding, no caffeine, and it kept saying it was really hard to find that if you really had to look and dig, that this stuff actually did have caffeine in it. But they were saying that it didn't. And there's really no such thing as no caffeine in coffee, because they can't really get all the caffeine out of the coffee. But I had to go through a withdrawal again off of coffee for myself doing that. So between that and the other detoxing that I was going through, in my situation, I would never drink a cup of coffee again. However, I know that there's people out there that still drink coffee, and I know there's people that are even raw vegans that say that they drink an occasional cup of coffee. And I can't really say that I think that's the worst thing in the world for anybody, especially if they aren't doing it all the time. But for me, I'm the kind of person who's very addictive, and if I don't do something, I don't do it at all. There's no in between. So for me, I don't want to have a cup of coffee again, and I don't crave coffee. I never really was one of those people that was in love with the taste of coffee. I do like the smell, and there was something about it, but it really was more for me that I wanted the caffeine and to be able to wake up. So now that I am fully raw, and I've been this way for over 5 years now, I don't have the need for caffeine at all whatsoever. And as a matter of fact, I wake up in the morning and I'm really bright-eyed and ready to go. And I see a lot of people that need to find some substitutes for coffee. I've spoken to a few people that still need, even though they're on a raw vegan diet, they feel like they need something in the morning. And there are ways that you can put together some different ideas to make it taste like coffee. And some people will say they don't like tea, but you can steep a little bit of tea and put some carob, or if you like cacao, which I don't do cacao, that's another like video about that particular substance that I don't use either, that I was actually using in the beginning of a raw vegan lifestyle. And some people do very well on cacao, but either cacao or carob, and you can add some dates or some different things in your blender, and you can make things that are very similar to a cup of coffee if you were wanting to wean off of coffee and do something else, or get off of coffee and do something else. And I can understand that some people can't just quit cold turkey, but you know, it's not just the reason of caffeine is not the only reason why I actually quit coffee. There's other reasons why I think that it's really not the best thing for people, especially if people are raw. The fact is that coffee is not raw. And it doesn't mean that everything has to be raw. I'm not trying to be like one of those hardcore raw people, but actually I think that the roasting process that makes these acrylamides is really bad for the human body. I really don't see anything about coffee that is, besides the fact that it has some polyphenols and things like that, that all the claims out there make, that it's so high in antioxidants, and if you drink one a day you'll do great and everything. But I totally have to say that I disagree, that it's really, to me, it's a hardcore legal drug. And you know, it's the one drug out there that anybody can buy. It's not like alcohol where you have to be a certain age. I mean, anybody can go in and buy coffee. And it's the most pushed drug, I think, out there, because you see people all the time, if you look around on these commercials and different ads about how great coffee is. Also a very social thing. People always want to talk over coffee and socialize over coffee. Let's get together and have a cup of coffee. So I know that it is a thing that is hard to kick, because not only because of the caffeine, but I know that socially sometimes people might really feel like either they feel lonely if they're not drinking coffee, or they're not a part of the crowd, or it's just something to do, which really, to me, is still kind of an addiction. It's not, maybe not the caffeine part of the addiction, but it's another part of the addiction. And I just really feel that when we get rid of this last addiction, I say last addiction because it usually is the last to go for a lot of people, and some people it never does go, or it's still, they still teeter-totter around with it like I kind of did in the beginning. And you know, it's just a really, really hard thing to get rid of. It's definitely still an addiction, but because it's more legal, and it's not like it's alcohol, and you know, it's you're still, if you're a raw vegan, you're still not eating cooked food, you're still doing well in your life if you're still drinking coffee and things, but it's still an addiction that I feel that when you really get rid of that last addiction, so much better, because you can let all these live foods really give you the energy, the real true energy, the sustainable energy, the energy that will get you through the day, the energy that is really, really smooth and level. It does not go up and down like a yo-yo. And another big thing that I don't want to forget to mention is that